Hello friends, good morning. I am Akash. I am a PhD scholar at Delhi University and coordinator at Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is an online institute and founded by Dr. Professor Leela Karunyakara sir. The idea behind the institution is to give space to the scholars, doctors and social scientists who are engaged in the field of Dalit studies. Today, Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge going to have its 16th lecture. This lecture is a part of a series which Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge started on 14th of April 2025 on the occasion of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Jayanti. For today's session, Professor Karunyakara sir going to chair the session. So I request Dr. Darshana Meshram to introduce and welcome our speaker.
Thank you, Akash. I am Dr. Darshana Mishra, coordinator Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, also teaching at Yashwant Mahavidyalaya, Delhi. So, uh, Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara is a prestigious scholar, thinker, and writer that is historian known for his significant contribution in the field of Dalit studies, philosophy of religion, and social justice. He earned AMC and PhD from JNU, New Delhi. Professor Karunyakara sir, 1997 in Ambedkar Studies, Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, BBAU, at Central University, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, as assistant professor and also was associate professor in 2005. After that, he held senior faculty roles at Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindu Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha, including School of Culture, Dean, and briefly acting vice chancellor in 2023. He founded the Ambedkar Studies Circle ASC at Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindu Vishwavidyalaya on February 21, 2022 to promote discussion on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar writing and speeches. He also established a group called Ambedkarites for and December 2022. He authored a book, History of Dalit Identity, which addressed the origin and meaning of the Dalit. His YouTube channel, Dalit Knowledge, founded by him, aims to build a Dalit intellectual community. As the visionary founder of the Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, he has been instrumental in advancing Dalit knowledge studies and fostering intellectual dialogue. Please welcome Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara sir, to guide us in this sharing session with journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Darshana, and I welcome our chair. Now I request Suhas Kamlakar to please introduce our today's guest and welcome Miss Suhas Kamlakar.
Good morning. So, Dr. Nandkishor More is a former faculty at Interdisciplinary School of Earth and Environmental Science of BBA, Central University, Lucknow, UP, India. When he joined as an assistant professor in the year 1997, since then, his area of teaching and research include environmental taxonomy, pollution, natural ecosystem and biodiversity, sustainable development, eco-restoration and conservation, and problems of global and Indian environment. He has obtained PG and research degree in the area of developmental biology and Department of Zoology, Biotechnology, University of Pune, India. He is recipient of graduate aptitude test in engineering GATE, Government of India in biological sciences for research in 1992, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research CSIR, Government of India, NET for lecturership in 1992, UNO Tokyo, and UNESCO ICTP fellowship in 2006 and 2007, ITR France travel fellowship in 2015 for pre-COP21 scientific conference. He was the member of Board of Management BBAU Lucknow and India for two terms, finance committee and building committee for one term, and currently the member of academic council at BBAU Lucknow. Referee for national and international journal in the areas of life sciences, life and environmental sciences. Visiting scientist at Denmark, Sarawak, Malaysia, Northern Cryptus, Turkey, Colombo, Sri Lanka, ICTP, Trece, Italy, Quebec City, Canada, Bangkok, Thailand, Marek, Morocco, UNESCO headquarters, Paris, France. He has around 60 publications in journals, proceedings, and edited chapters to his credit. He has delivered over 45 invited lectures in academic staff colleges in India. He has also contributed on environmental issues in DD and Air on air and BBC Radio. Thank you. We all welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Suhas Kamlagar. I welcome Professor Nandkishor More sir, and Professor More sir going to deliver his lecture on revisiting Ambedkar's idea of democracy, current contestations. So I request Professor More sir to please deliver his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. I hope everybody can hear me. It's a very good morning to all of you. Jai Bhim. I take this opportunity to thank my very learned friend, Professor Karunyakara, for extending an invitation to me to deliver a talk in a very interdisciplinary area, and it's very near and dear to me also, because I consider that democracy and Dr. Ambedkar, these are like, they are truly inseparable to me. And therefore, when I had talked with Professor Karunyakara, I said that let me have a talk related to this. In fact, I was preparing something called as Dr. Ambedkar and his Constituent Assembly debates. I was trying to develop a thesis on that, meaning some understanding on that. But before that, this discussion came over, so I thought, why not revisit his ideas of democracy, particularly when we look at the scenario all around us and all over the world. So this gives me an opportunity, and I thank your institute also, KIDK, for initiating a discussion on very, very temporal and topical issues. So this is great that, we can continue to do this. Intellectual discourse is equally important for a society which is deprived of various resources. But then let me start with, when we say that Dr. Democracy and Dr. Ambedkar are truly inseparable, when I say that, it says that, one envisages and the other acknowledges. It is how the link is all about, you see. And when we say that while we revisit Dr. Ambedkar's ideas of democracy, then it has to be seen in the context of epistemology of democracy as the terminology, and also the contestations during his lifetime of Dr. Ambedkar himself, and the ideological backup that he was having while he was contesting the idea of democracy in the Constituent Assembly. Secondly, it's also equally important when we see the present stage. It becomes, mandatory on our part, at least to have a visit to his ideas. because to say that India is a great democracy, is the largest democracy in the world, may appear, very, very goody-goody, you see. But then, what is the state of democracy presently in the largest democracy in the world? Then there are so many questions which will be raised. And most of these people who talk about democracy, democratic institutions, democratic rights, and so on and so forth, will be, they'll be simply pondering over that where we are, what we envisaged for, and what we look forward to, and where it's going to end. And these are a few fundamental questions, I try to address, in this discussion of roughly 45 minutes, if you permit. Well, let me tell you that, we start with the idea of very simple definition of democracy. Many people have put forth, democracy by definition could be demon and crazy. It's a demon, it's a democracy that way. But then, when we go with the principle of Walter Vagehardt, he says that democracy is simply a government by discussion. That means the discussion is the preamble of democracy. In a philosophical
Professor More, sir.
You're not getting my voice? In real sense, because I am a student of natural science, as I have been introduced. But I was able to go through, most of the literature, and being in Ambedkar University, let me inform you before I forget that, I consider it a privilege to work in a university which is established to protect the educational rights of the weaker sections of the society. And I've been working there since 1997, and this is my 29th year in my profession there. The university has been established by an act of parliament, and therefore we have half of the seats reserved for the marginalized communities, and we are continuing with that. There are various contestations even for this particular object and particular institution. We are all trying to meet with the challenges which are always there. Social challenges, cultural challenges, legal challenges are there. People have put forth many challenges before us also. But we, as the democratic lovers, and the lovers of democracy in our country, lovers of protecting the rights of the citizenry of this country, we are contesting many of them, with our might. And let me come back to the point that I was trying to say, that, that if you go by this Walter Vagehardt's connotation of democracy, a consideration of an explanation of democracy in a very simple manner, that it says that, it should be just a governance by discussion. But there are like, if you say, and compare it with the concept which Abraham Lincoln has, it is very clear for him that if I am not going to be a slave, so I will not be a master. So that means there is something that it is equal. So I will not be a slave, so I will not be a master too. But in his terms of democracy, he says that it is the democracy for the people, by the people, and of the people. He also makes it very clear further to that. And there is third one. There are many others, but I'll just restrict to some of these, because as a student of having understood some of these concepts, and I still consider that democracy, as a true disciple of Dr. Ambedkar's ideas, that it is he thinks democracy a little ahead than just a mere discussion, just a mere governance, but he says that it is a social organization. Democracy is a social organization. And then there are many explanations that he makes up, and he puts forward many ideas in a more elaborate manner. The one idea that he put forth is that it is this institution with which, radical social, economic, and cultural changes can be brought about. It is this form. It is this form of government. That means he said that it is the institution which will provide meaning such a kind of environment, such a kind of ecosystem by which we can bring about radical changes in the society, and we can even transform the society. That's where, Dr. Ambedkar's definition, I consider it is little more modern, little more practical, little more inclusive. So in that sense, when I revisit his ideas today in 2025, we have a different world altogether. India has completed 75 years of democracy, because when I say democracy, because parliamentary democracy. That parliament also came into existence, and from 2050 onwards, we have even our constitution, that he was the chief architect of our constitution. So that is also in place. So there are many things that we have to talk about, but we can visit only few of them in our discussion today. One point, which is very interesting to me to say, that 75 years for a democracy is considered to be a good time to revisit that how you did it, how we managed, how we protected the rights of the citizenry, and what are the democratic things that are in place for the common man of this country. And there are few things that I am just trying to refer back to in today's discussion. One is that, when we look at the situation that is taking place all around our own Indian subcontinent, then in recent past, you see, in 2023, we had a coup at Bangladesh, the closest neighbor. That was the geographical boundary part of our India. And from Jessore Khulna constituency only, Dr. Ambedkar entered in the Constituent Assembly. That was a coup. We had a public unrest in a neighboring southern peninsular neighboring country in Sri Lanka. And recently we had a Gen Z in one of the republic close to us in the northern Himalayan region, Nepal, where they have almost dethroned the elected government. So we have these three neighboring situations. So that means the contestations in terms of formation, in terms of delivery system, or in terms of, if you say, for that matter, that whether the democracy has entrusted people's trust in them in the form of the government and in the delivery system, probably then these questions could always be raised when there are three coups very close to us. And in the country like us also, like if you look at the present situation in our own country, we have a democratic movement taking place in the state of, in the region of northern Himalaya, again Ladakh. We have cases of the Uttarakhand. We have other states also. There is a kind of unrest, and this is primarily because of. And there is one important point that to be brought about to your notice is about the Gen Z, the new generation, their aspirations. Does democracy provide it? So, in a nutshell, what I would like all of us to really think over is what is the current state of Indian democracy? Whether the democracy is in a perilous state, one. Two, that is there or are there? If there are if it is a plurality, is there a crisis of democratic institutions? Is there? If yes, then we'll have to ponder over, we'll have to revisit why they were made, what was it, how it was envisaged about the democratic institutions. Third one, that most of these countries, including the countries where coup took place, the dethronement of the government took place, and there is a massive public unrest, including in our country, whether there are not elections held, are there no electoral policies? So because then is it because there is from democracy we simply have an electoral democracy, or the places where the democratic institutions are having a big question mark, whether they are simply democracies or they have been only a transformation from democracy to electoral democracy per se to exist on the map. Now these are the first fundamental milieu that I would like to discuss over, that what is the current state of Indian democracy in these three preambles, in these three parameters. And the second one, which I would definitely like to discuss over, is about the remedies to protect Indian democracy. Now, how do you ensure this? If you look at the first three the bullets that I have raised, by which we say that, are we able to safeguard the democratic rights and institutions? One, if you can do so, then you have all the option to safeguard your own democracy. Now, what is the democracy in that sense? How Ambedkar has envisioned? That is the next part that I would like to put. Let me just throw the dice with these points. The second point is going by the logic, present logic of democracy, which is basically, has it turned out to be electoral democracy? Then what is the future of Indian democracy? Future prospects of Indian democracy, that is in a nutshell. And the third one, that what Dr. Ambedkar has envisaged about democracy, that from democracy to electoral democracy to social democracy, could it be reality in future? And these are few fundamental points that I would like to debate over and talk to. Now, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I consider this, that I started with the same idea that as Abraham Lincoln said, that as I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. So it is his idea of democracy. Various philosophers, various scientists have put forth. But for Dr. Ambedkar, democracy is not a mere form of government, as Lincoln has talked about, as Vijay has talked about. For him, it is a form of social organization. And when he says that it is a social organization, thereby he ensures that it is through this apparatus, revolutionary changes can be brought about. Now, revolutionary changes can be brought about in what spheres? Which spheres? Particularly in the social and economic life of the people, and that too without any bloodshed. Meaning, right to franchise is not a right. Is not a right we obtained, out of our bloodshed. There was no bloody revolution to have the right to franchise granted to you, which has happened in other European countries and even in the other countries all over the world. But here, he has envisaged that we can bring about social radical changes, particularly social and economic changes in the lives of the people of this country, without even having to struggle for, and even a drop of blood be spilled out. So that is one way. So how it can be brought, but there are some conditions which he put forth. That one of the conditions that he says that there should not be glaring inequalities. Now, when I say glaring inequalities in society, that means if there are glaring inequalities, that means there will be something called as privileged class. There will be one class exclusively which will be basically privileged class, and the second will be non-privileged class. So the second precondition which Dr. Ambedkar envisages, that there should be an existence of opposition to in democracy. There should be proper existence, not merely for the sake of existence. And I underline this, that in the neighboring state of our country, in Nepal, there was government and there was democracy. There is democracy, there was a government, and there was opposition also. But for him, the existence of an opposition should not be for a mere sake. It should be for the real sake of democracy, that opposition should stand as opponent, and not for the sake of opposition. And that's where that needs to be discussed and debated in future also. The third condition, that there should be equality in law and administration. And the fourth one he talks about is there has to be, in terms of democracy to be operative, there has to be a frame of constitution, and there should be constitutional morality per se. There should not be tyranny of the majority on the minority. That is how he talks about moral order of society and public conscience. But in one way, he also states that it should not be like that. There shall not be any privileged class which will have all the privileges, and there will be another class which will carry the burden of all the privileged classes. So that means then democracy does not exist in that sense. To have democracy to exist, you need to have some prerequisite, and this prerequisite, Dr. Ambedkar puts it in a very, very succinct manner, and he says. And while addressing the Constituent Assembly debate, and since I am a little more interested in that, he suggested that there are certain essentials, there are prerequisites. These are the preconditions for and functioning democracy. One, there has to be constitutional methods, and it should not lie any liberty at the feet of a great man. That is, that great manship, that all liberty lies at the feet of the great man. Then what about the others? They are nobody. And then he said that it should be a condition that we should make this political democracy a real social democracy. Because you don't have great men, you have constitutional methods for remedies. Because the first Constituent Assembly debate when Dr. Ambedkar, while addressing, on 17 December 1946, he makes it very clear that you cannot have remedies without understanding the issues of the society. When the first Prime Minister, he put up the object resolution in the Constituent Assembly, it is Dr. Ambedkar's maiden speech, in which he stated that you cannot have remedies without understanding the base of its issues. That's where he says that you have to have constitutional methods, meaning remedies have to be there, but they should be constitutional remedies. And that's how we have in future deliberations, we have constitutional safeguards, and there are constitutional communities which are guaranteed. There are safeguards guaranteed by the constitution of this country. So why this kind of proposition which he had put forth, and why he was always contesting on these points? These points he contested for quite some time because he firmly believed that political democracy cannot succeed without social and economic democracy. So one of the talk that he delivered to Voice of America, he has very aptly said, and I quote, that democracy could not be equated with either republic or a parliamentary form of government. The roots of democracy lay not in the form of government, parliamentary or otherwise. It's a big quote, but for him, the democracy is a model of associated living. This is what is a big quote. I'm just unquoting in between because I have to make my points for others. For him, political democracy also is not an end in itself, but the most powerful means to achieve social and economic ideals in society. And that's why, in the State Socialism, one of the volumes, of Dr. Ambedkar's writing and speeches, he said that state socialism within the framework of parliamentary democracy can defeat the dictatorship. Why? Because that one man, one vote, one value concept will come into picture. When that value system will be enforced, and there will be constitutional methods, and there are remedies for the aberrations which are there in the society, then therefore, then the rights will be ensured. If not, what will happen? If there are fundamental rights without economic security, then it is of no use for the have-nots, for the marginalized community, for the oppressed communities. So otherwise, what he says that, in other way, he's saying that, social and economic democracy are tissues and the fibers of a political democracy, the body of political democracy. The body of political democracy should have what? It should have both. If it is electoral democracy, which is basically economic, it is democracy which is obtained through the process of electoral process. But if it provides for, social and economic changes in a manner that is envisaged by Dr. Ambedkar. But how about the multi-denominational society like what we have in our country? That, there are various things because we have a very secular constitution for that matter to state. The democracy talks about all the common denominator is for us, like in our Indian democracy, is a secularism. That, it is because, it is one of the pillars on which the superstructure of democracy rests. Because it is a multi-denominational society. It doesn't have something which is like a monologue. It doesn't have something like a monoculture. It is basically multi-dimensional and denominational. When I say multi-dimension, meaning it has a linguistic diversity, it has a cultural diversity, and it has a social alliance of communities. So therefore, you see, so all that, if at all, if he looks at, how this multi-denominational society can be considered to be more democratic in the frame of democracy, will be that, all that the secular state means that the parliament shall not be competent to impose any particular religion upon the rest of people. And this is the only limitation that even the present constitution recognizes. So you see, he is looking at the social aspect at one hand, he is looking at the economic aspect on the other hand, and thirdly, he is trying to envisage the culture part of the India, that is diversity. And that's where, the democracy has to be seen in the manner that he envisaged. Because there are too many things that they were coming up, at that point of time while our democracy was evolving, while our constitution was in the process of formation. Because institutional authority, because sometimes, if you see that the Hobbesian philosophy that mentions, that Hobbesian philosophy mentions that, there is centralized authority which will govern everything. Whereas in our parliamentary democracy, it is the center-state relationship. The Article 1 of the Constitution of India says that the India, that is Bharat, shall be union of states. So in the first clause itself, it says that there is nothing like central. That just like Hobbesian philosophy, which says that all authority shall remain centered. And there will be centralized institutional authority which will govern the whole system. It doesn't happen so. But you see, and that's why, when we operate our constitution in the manner as prescribed by the parliament, we say that, we have state list and we have concurrent list and we have central list. So till emergency, we had education as a state subject. Then during emergency 1972, we had education which was put into the concurrent list. Whether is it still necessary to bring it into the state list for state to take responsibility for providing education to every citizen of this country? That's another question, which Dr. Ambedkar probably would have envisaged for. Now, this is one fundamental question that I wanted to put forth. That these are few areas that needs thorough interpretation. They needed to revisit them now again because we have a different dichotomous situation arising every now and then. On one hand, we talk about that we have institutional democracy as an institution exists. We also talk about that it's the largest democracy. We also say that there are elections are held at the union and the state level. But then what about the delivery system? What about the system that needed to be achieved? Are we able to achieve one man, one vote, one value, even after 75 years of independence? What is this economic upward gradation, if at all it has achieved? To what extent it has been achieved even after 75 years of our democracy in existence? So therefore, the points which are raised, if it is not achieved, then why do we need to provide, the ration to almost like half of the population? 80 crore people in this country are still provided with. Does that mean that we are able to achieve something which is socially and economically possible to have achieved much before what we are achieving today? Why this situation has come up with? Why at all it was necessary to have right to education, to provide and safeguard the right of every child of this country to have education? And that was made as a compulsory education. Why at all it was necessary? That means, the social and economic changes as it was envisaged while he was visiting and he was interpreting and he was advocating for democratic institutions and the rights of the citizens. Probably there is some kind of delivery gaps. And these gaps have to be achieved and they have to be really talked over. So there are a few things which I need to talk about in the remaining time that I am left with. One is very interesting to all of us, that when we talk about, the issues which are related to the issues of untouchability practices prior to independence and after independence, and even after having a legislation that we have abolished untouchability, as early as the first decade of this 21st century, we had a report of an international NGO which states that the various forms of untouchability exist in this country. Various forms, and there are almost 240 or 250 forms of untouchability practices still exist. How can we have democracy which values one man, one vote, one value? We still have the practice of untouchability. There are instances as early as in this particular decade that the very social existence of human beings have been denigrated. That there are people who have denigrated the very existence of human being in various states. So these are certain conditions and compulsions. There are a number of contestations that the society is trying to achieve its fundamental rights, trying to fight to assert its own rights. But who is able to safeguard that? And that's where, that's where the big challenge to protect the Indian democracy is. So let me just go back to my first half of that what is the crisis of Indian democracy? One, the current challenges to Indian democracy. The first point which I was trying to state is this, that while we say that most of these issues which pertains to the society, particularly the youth, and the issues related to youth, their education, their employment, and the delivery system for the healthcare system. The Indian democracy, despite having its volume, we had seen during pandemic that our healthcare system was in a very difficult stress. And because of that, to the last individual of the society, we were not able to provide the basic healthcare system. And as a result, we had huge loss of human lives. Secondly, that the states which are supposed to protect the educational rights of the society, particularly in terms of basic and elementary education, for which we are signatory. We are signatory to the Sustainable Development Goal, 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 143 parameter indicators. That it is duty of the state to provide basic and elementary education up to the age of 14 years. But there are instances where, having been signed the SDGs, and it is obligatory on the part of most of the nations of the world, still this issue of providing education within the periphery of 2 kilometers is just denied. And this is very fundamental. So when we say, so the framers are those who philosophize the Indian democracy, its life, its operation, and its output, its result, they had envisaged this, that it will bring about certain changes, that even after 75 years of independence and 75 years of constitution being enforced, we still have to fight for fundamental rights, right to education also, and the most important right, what is necessary for most of the human beings, is the right to basic and fundamental health care. So these three basic issues, which are basically required for citizenry for its social and economic life. Otherwise, his life will be in peril. And if the majority of the citizens of this country, if they are denied these very fundamental rights, then therefore, the most of the scholars which will have compulsion to state that despite having enacted various legislations also, the democracy is almost in a perilous state because it is not delivering. Economic numbers does not mean anything to the person who is sitting at the remotest place of this country and does not have access to education, does not have access to healthcare, and does not have social security measures to say, for that matter. So therefore, when we say that most of the individuals in our country, if they are denied basic fundamentals, so that's why that means when we say that what are the organs of the democracy which are and what is its state. So the first and foremost, like most vibrant democracy, that democratic institutions, when we talk about, these are not simply merely educational institutions. These are the pillars of democracy. These are the estates of democracy. One is, legislation, executives, media. And we also have what is called as, when we say that the most important is the pillar of democracy, if it is the public broadcast, now we have a different system of communication, and the media is now more, social media has come into picture, and the state media plays a different tune, and the social media plays a different tune altogether. So there is no symphony of it. Like that's what happened, once upon a time when Italy was governed by the dictators, and the dictators had their own media channels to propagate their own ideas. But the people realized that they don't want this. So what they would do, they would simply raise the volumes of their televisions and the radios, because the spies of the dictators would be providing inputs about whether the people are listening to what the government or what the dictator want to tell them. Then when the reports were going that yes, everybody is listening to them, people would switch on and they'll get out of their houses. But the kind of wrong logic that the dictator always got, later on it was the dethronement of the dictator, and therefore, the democracy got existed in those countries. Dr. Ambedkar was also very clear about, because he had seen some kind of democracies already, the failure of some democracies in the Europe also that time. So he was always looking forward to a democracy where, it will not only be simply electoral democracy, he was always looking forward to something to achieve as a social democracy. So in that way, in that sphere of democracy, you will always put equality at the base of the democracy. Because having experienced himself and having seen the democracies of the other parts of the other world, he had always thought that if one type of dictatorship would come over, then it will be difficult to erase. If the second type of dictatorship comes over, again it will be difficult. So he wanted to have a mechanism by which there shall not be any scope for dictatorship to arise at any point of time. So one of the conditions, he said that the liberty shall not lie at the feet of the great man, because that will give rise to a different form of dictatorship. Not exactly, because otherwise you will say that we are electing the governments. But it is something that he's ensured that through constitutional framework, through the democratic institutions, there shall not be any scope for any wrongdoing, and so that the people will always be having the first right to say. Well, discussion is important, but in what way? Vagahat is important. Even for that matter, Lincoln also said what he said, that it is for the people, by the people, of the people. But now people have put this is for the people, of the people, and BUI, by the people. Now it is something, it has come into that form. So meaning Abraham Lincoln also has been misappropriated or appropriated in the rightest possible way that we can see today. Let me go back to my another interesting point which I was wanting to say, that when we say that institutions which have been established by various acts of the parliament and by the aspirations of the people, they are to be protected to ensure that the democracy is vibrant. Now, what are those institutions? Then we have educational frame, which is set up by the Act of Parliament, most of the institutions. We have another institutions which are coming up. We see when we had, just after 1950s, when we came up with a different economic package, what we call as Mahalanobis model of economic empowerment, by ensuring that, there will be a public sector undertaking. And then, that model, which is basically based on the Russian Mahalanobis model for economic growth of this country, to ensure that, that public sector will be responsible for utilizing the national resources, and then therefore, there will be opportunities for people to get employment, and also they will be able to regulate the national resources. But deviation from public sector undertaking and then giving it to the private entities is another big challenge that the economic sovereignty of the country and the democracy also, that puts democracy in peril. So this particular vision, which was thought over even by the forefathers of the national builders, including Dr. Ambedkar, is necessary today we have to revisit them. That are we putting democracy in peril by not honoring the very mandate which the people have already given to? Because no election people will talk about employment, education, healthcare. There will be debates on different spheres altogether. Whereas, just before independence, we were all talking about the country which had faced First World War and World War II was already economically in a perilous state. So how to resurrect the country's economy? So therefore, we came up with the planning system. We came up with the planning mechanism, and we had 5-year plan, and we were planning. In every plan, we had established public sector undertaking, and these plans continued, and most of the public sector undertaking were delivering good. Otherwise, why at all there is necessity to name them as the Navaratnas and Maharatnas? It was basically to ensure that the economic prosperity of the country and the wealth of this country will be shared with the citizens of this country. And they will be contributing to, these institutions will contribute to the economic growth of this country. And they will naturally empower, they will go for economic empowerment of the society. So economic empowerment is also equally important in a country which was already war-torn. 2 wars had been faced. And just after that, we became independent. So therefore, that planning of development, that focus plan, economic planning, was also equally ensuring that the society and the economy goes hand in hand. And that's how, this is what was envisaged by the forefathers, and particularly in the democratic institution, the role of public sector will be very important. In a situation which is not purely just a government to say that, when we talk about the governments have to, when we say the state is responsible for, because we talked about welfare state. It is in welfare state was primarily because, because most of the subjects which were near and dear to the society were part of the state subject, while we listed the subjects for implementation. And therefore some subjects went into the concurrent list and somewhere in the state list. That is how lastly, when we say, many times we continue to say that Indian democracy needs to revisit, the ideas of the forefathers of democracy and the constitution. The framers of our constitution, and I must tell you very clearly and very explicitly that the Constituent Assembly debates are the real eye-opener that how the democracy in this country shall exist, how the society will look forward to its development, how the debate why the debate in the Constituent Assembly was on multicultural and plural society and not on a monotonous or a monocultural system. And that is where, the strength of this country lies only in the diversity. The strength of this country lies, the strength of the democracy lies more on the diversity of the forms. There be social forms, there are cultural forms, and there are linguistic forms, and there are geographical forms. We have biodiversity all over the country. So friends, ladies and gentlemen, I will just make few points and then I will leave this all for discussion. We'll have a good time. I hope I will make another 10 minutes for some more points to elaborate, and then we'll have discussion. We'll definitely close by 1 o'clock. I can assure you that you'll be hungry by now. So, but not me, of course. Let me come back to this. I hope you are with me. I hope you are not sleeping. Shall I continue?
No, sir, we are with you.
If you are with me, then fine. That's good, because then I can also have different ways to put forth. There are a few points which I was talking about, earlier. We had one conference, just for your information, in 2023, which was graced by our Professor Kanchailaya, then one leading advocate, Mehmood Pracha, then we had Professor Suresh Mane, then Rajendra Pal Gautam, we had some police officers, some judges and all. It was a one-day-long discourse on democracy, particularly Dr. Ambedkar's vision. And it was graced by more than 550 people. It was a big organization. So I think we should also look forward to similar organization where these ideas needed to be discussed now. Because the country is in a transition. It is as it is envisaged, and there is a speculative voice rising all over the country that is there a transition? Is democracy in transition in most of the South Asian countries? Is India also in the form of that kind of transition? Are the Gen Z or the change makers of the democracy, are they watching about the best experimental observation in the neighboring subcontinent? Are they looking forward to some better part of that? this sound speculative voice is already rising. Because yesterday, one of the voices of democracy, particularly for the people of Ladakh, Sonam Wangchuk, has been detained. And there is a big, and he happens to be an inventor, like he comes from our group of inventors, particularly in the environmental science and in the domain of energy and other sciences. But then, are these the people of meaning the Gen Z, are they able to cobble up the courage and this, or I say strength to protect the Indian Constitution and Indian democracy? Are they willing to look forward to the experiments of other neighboring states to ensure that the democracy remains vibrant? Or are they looking forward to another better experiment elsewhere, and then they finally look forward to change of transition to the better democracy, more vibrant democracy? Democracy by itself is a vibrant institution, to say, because its establishment of this kind of instrument of democracy itself goes through process of democracy. Democratic formation itself is a very vibrant process. Like election is a very vibrant process where debate and discussion is necessary. And secondly, and the right of the individuals are also enforced, and the opinions of the individuals are also enforced. But how it is enforced is it is important. How it is operated is very interesting. So there are a few things that which I was just trying to tell, Before I conclude, let me bring it to your notice. One of our very learned scholar, George Reyes, in one of his article, he talked about, and I must quote that, and he says it is because when he was lamenting on Dr. Ambedkar's on the state of democracy in our country, he says that, and he stresses, he stressed that the future of Indian democracy depends a great deal on the revival of Babasaheb's visionary conception of democracy. Now, in other words, that when the Indian democracy is confronted with challenges, the vision of Dr. Ambedkar's democracy shall prevail. That is what, in a nutshell, he is wanting to say. Now, why would this kind of stress, which my learned friend George Reyes has put forth? Now, it says, because it's instructive. It's instructive because he said that it is trying to look back at the vision of democracy. So what kind of challenges that Indian democracy faces? And there are a few examples. That one of the organizations, particularly based in United States, it reported and it said that that India, while they were talking about the democracy index of the world and the nations of the world, they have put the class of countries and the class of democracy. Like if it is democracy, fine. If it is vibrant democracy, fine. If it is free democracy, fine. If it is not free, then they will say partially free. So from a free democracy, they have put our India in 2022 in partially free democracy. It's a US-based non-profit organization. It has put forth. This is in its annual report. Then the second one was the Swedish institution Vijay. They came up with another observation that well, it is democracy for that matter to say, but he said that it is electoral democracy. That the elections are held on every typical interval, and the elected governments are there. But there are issues related to that, and the country is contesting. The opposition is contesting on those points of the election itself. So there are ways to look at this, and when we say that when we put forth certain conditions, because when I am finally saying that few important issues will be important, that if you value one vote, one value, and one man, that means the democracy is for all. Then if there is one man, one vote, one value, changes to one man, one vote is fine, but more values or many values, or one man, one vote, no value, it is where the crisis of democracy will reflect. And that is where we are saying that human existence cannot be denigrated. But there are instances where human existence have been denigrated, although we say that we are democracy, although we say that there are social safeguards, although we say that there are constitutional safeguards. Now there are many areas that we still need to look forward. the debate of 1 hour is still important for me to bullet some of these points which I think over. But I'm still focusing more on the Constituent Assembly debate because nobody has done anything very significant on those except one book which came for review and it is already published. I'll tell you about those things also. So finally, when I say that there must not be a class which I say with the vision and the stress which Dr. Ambedkar said, that there must not be a class that has got all the privileges and the class that has got all the burdens to carry. But before I close, let me bring to your notice the very fantastic quote which everybody quotes. But to me, there are three important speeches of Dr. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly, very important. One was on 17 December 1946. The second one was on the 4th November 1948. And then the most historic, which is already quoted, was on the 25th November 1949. And that's where he says, and I just say before I close this, that it is the warning. And that warning, I think when we are talking on 27th September 2025, whether are we still in the process of adoption of the Constitution? Because this quote of Dr. Ambedkar was on while we were adopting the Constitution, and Dr. Ambedkar warned, and I quote, on 26th of January 1950, we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life, we will have inequalities. In politics, we will be recognizing the principles of one man, one vote, one value, and one vote, one value. In social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one vote. How long shall we continue to live this life of contradictions? How long shall we deny equality to our social and economic life? And if you continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. We must remove this contradiction at the earliest possible moment, or else those who suffer from inequality will blow up the structure of our political democracy, unquote. Now, the question is it where are there issues of crisis of Indian democracy, and then who will safeguard the Indian democracy, and what is the future of Indian democracy in a nutshell? This is what I just wanted to put forth. There are so many things there for me to discuss, but I think it will be good to have more vibrant discussion. And I just put forth these ideas, then I'll open for discussion. It will be good for Dr. Karunyakara and his colleagues. So I think I tried to put forth, his vibrant vision of democracy, and including the scholars which have done a very great job. Including some of the Indian scholars, I have not quoted them, and maybe forgiven for that. So thank you very much, and I think I will be happy to answer some of the queries. I'm sure I have not put everything, in black and white, but then still I spoke about. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful talk. And I really know that there will be many questions, because there are many questions in my head too. So we are going to go there. But before that, I request our chair, Mr. Karunyakara sir, to please comment on today's.
Professor Nandkishor More is my good friend of mine for many years. We have joined together in Ambedkar Central University, Lucknow. That's a BBAU, Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar Central University, Lucknow. We joined together, and we had a very good relationship. We contributed a lot together to the Dalit society and the corporate culture of Ambedkar University. Together, we worked almost about 10 years. I was there. So he's very well known to me in different ways. The most interesting thing about his election is that he is the first non-social scientist generally the scientists, social scientists feel that this, physical, natural scientists, don't have any business to, make an observation or comment. At the most, they could be listeners to the social science, topics, or they should be kept away from the social sciences. This is the general perception of, social scientists. Social science academics belong to social sciences. But that Professor More has broken. That stereotypes Professor More has broken today on the platform of KIDK. I think, this is the first, of that kind of lecture at an environmental scientist, an earth sciences, specialist, talking on democracy, that too with Ambedkar's, perspective. It's a wonderful, to receive by the, students of social sciences, as well as, faculties of the social sciences who are, in this who are today with us in this lecture. So, Professor More, you have not only delivered a lecture, you have broken the stereotype of, a kind of stereotypes that existing within the social science fraternity, social scientist fraternity. It's a very good lecture, Professor More. It's beyond, our expectations. You have justified your presence of delivering on such a, relevant and, very conceptual topic. It's a really appreciable. It's really, your lecture is really appreciable. I personally appreciate you, not just as a friend, but a social scientist, an academic, a social sciences academic. You have contributed a lot today with your wonderful ideas. I am sure that you are not less than any social science professor. I am sure that KIDK would be, privileged to have once again one more lecture in a future. Certainly, because such a valuable, contribution you have made today. I once again appreciate Professor More. We are really thankful to you to have today with us. Thank you very much, Professor More.
Thank you, Professor Karunyakara, sir. Now, I request those who want to ask a question, the forum is open, so please go ahead. Please ask a question related to today's lecture.
May I audible, Akash?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. Please go ahead. But your camera is off, your video is off.
I can't open the video.
Yeah, please, then go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sir, first of all, congratulations, Modi sir.
Thank you.
Your lecture is very wonderful, excellent, and you are very deeply explained on the topic. I would like to ask you two questions.
Excuse me. I think you are outside, right? If I am.
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
So
yeah,
no problem. You open it. No problem. You open it. You open your video. No, it's not an issue.
Okay, sir. Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. I would like to ask you two questions. Sir, Ambedkar says that...
No, Akash, you guide her.
Kiran ma'am, please open your camera.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
My first question is, Ambedkar says that why is political democracy not enough for India? Why is he said that time? I just want to ask question first. And second question is, how did Dr. Ambedkar view the dangers of caste in a democratic society? That is my two questions, sir. Thank you.
What is the second question?
How did Dr. Ambedkar view the dangers of caste in democratic society? Yes.
Can I answer this question?
Yeah, please. We'll go one by one.
first question is that Dr. Ambedkar said that political democracy alone is not sufficient.
Yeah.
Is because of the reason that you see today, that we have all the process of election and democratic institutions are as reflected that they are working very well. But you see that there is no social equality still existing in the country. It doesn't exist in a real sense. Politically, one man, one vote, one value is still there.
Yeah.
But in society, it does not have one man, one vote, one value. Sometimes it has one man, one vote, many values, and sometimes one man, one vote, no value. It is there. You see the case of Madhya Pradesh. One gentleman is urinating, I cannot call him gentleman, one ruffian is urinating on an individual. What is the value of human life? How can you do so? The basic human existence has to be honored. Whether you are qualified, whether you are educated, whether you are not educated. There is a political democracy. Both are having political rights, but they are at the diametrically opposite directions. The second question, can you still say that Akash?
He was talking about how the caste is.
No, she could tell the. You open. You are unmute. Dr.
Okay.
Kiran, repeat your second question.
Yeah, sir. My second question is, how did Dr. Ambedkar view the dangers of caste in a democratic society? This is my second question. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. In fact, Ambedkar, in order to uphold equality in law and administration, he says that life should be treated lightly, and he said that there should not be any discrimination based on class, caste, gender, and race, etc. So one of the things that he said that there should not be discrimination is one of that discrimination. He said that caste should not be discriminated. That is what he envisages. In his democracy, there is no discrimination based on caste, class, gender, and even race, and so on and so forth. But then as you say today, that if you go to National Commission for Scheduled Caste, National Commission for Scheduled Tribe, you will realize that caste-based atrocities are rising. Secondly, the issue that there shall not be any discrimination in law and administration. There are instances where in administration the discrimination cases are rising, and there are issues related to even the legislative provision meant to protect the fundamental rights of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities by enacting a special provision for prevention of atrocities against scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and that is one way. That is how we are looking at. But this legislative provision also is fraught with so many consequences. Sometimes there are amendments, sometimes there are omissions and deletion in the provisions of this act. Some states are doing it, although it is the central act, you see. And therefore, the commissions are supposed to be provided with more teeth, meaning more power or teeth. They should be provided with a more sharper teeth to ensure that this particular legal provision is, operated in the manner as envisaged in the principle of equality, and to get rid of, that atrocities on the marginalized communities. So caste is viewed. Dr. Ambedkar is sorry to state it for this audience that everybody has considered Dr. Ambedkar as a scholar of caste hegemony and all that, but there are so many other areas that he has really excelled and done well. One of the social identity that he identified as a caste is very difficult to decaste. That he has already seen practically, and he himself has faced it. But then to ensure that equality before law, so therefore right to franchisee was provided, in the first instance, for which he felt very happy in the evening when the right to franchisee was granted in the Constituent Assembly, and he said that there shall not be the king from the womb of the queen, It shall be from the box of ballot, But then that also is a big question nowadays. Yeah, I think I will try to answer your question. Yeah. Thank you for it.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can you one question, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Amit Kumar, please. आप बोलिए.
अमित, हाँ.
जी सर. सर, thank you sir. Thank you so much. Sir, one question.
Yeah.
How can Dr. Ambedkar concepts?
अमित, आप अपना वीडियो ओपन कर लीजिए.
Yes sir. जी सर.
हाँ, बोलिए.
Yes sir. How can Dr. Ambedkar's conception of democracy as a means of social transformation be revisited and reinterpreted in light of the current political, social, and conceptual conception in India?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Amit. You say that if you look at the present situation today, as you see, that there is a huge hatred, and there are some elements which are cropping up, and they have almost put, the liberty of the society in peril. And the Dr. Ambedkar vision states that, it is his vision because his vision is for the people of this country, but every citizen of this country. It is not merely for the peer. It is meant for everyone. But today, when we look at the situation, we realize that there is a tremendous violence and hatred being perpetuated and spread elsewhere. Under this situation, it is his vision which tells that, what is his vision? He says that, unless there are issues which are near and dear to the society they are addressed, the people will not feel empowered. And he said that you empower people socially and economically so that they will have strength and courage to fight with even the hatred and violence. Otherwise, they will remain more and they will get marginalized more and more. Because this is one process. Electoral process or democratic processes are also equally important processes for strengthening of the democracy and the strengthening of the individual, by which social and economic changes can be brought about. The governments can bring about changes, but if you have the governments which are not able to protect the citizenry, not able to protect the fundamental rights of the society, how do you ensure that there will be social and economic rights will be protected? It is what the vision of Dr. Ambedkar is, that unless you protect this, your democracy is null and void. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else who want to ask a question?
No, how do you, otherwise also, Amit, how do you face the challenge of sectarianism and fundamentalism? Unless you have a democratic principle in place, you cannot fight those challenges put forth by fanatic elements, by the fundamentalists, for the sectarianists, and also those who are preaching and professing hatred and violence. It is a democratic system, only institutions only can protect against this. And that strength, that empowerment has been provided by the democratic vision of Dr. Ambedkar. Yeah, any other question?
Yeah, anyone else who want to ask a question, please go ahead. So I want to ask a question, sir. So first of all, when you said in your lecture that Dr. Ambedkar also talked about failure of democracy in Europe, Dr. Ambedkar knows about it. So I want a little more information about it because I'm also I'm trying to find out where Dr. Ambedkar is saying this, but I'm really sorry for that. I'm not getting any data. So will you just, because one of the social scientist professor also said me, and because of that, the curious started in my head after that only. But I failed to find out. And the other thing is the important is I asked this question to one of the professor, is that India is a parliamentary democracy. We adopted it in a political sense, But the important thing, what about the social democracy, what Dr. Ambedkar is saying about, and how we are going to establish the social democracy. And as a people who are from the marginalized community, they are trying to move the social democracy toward the upward. But the people who are in the dominant in nature and dominant in caste, they are not accepting social democracy. At least when it comes from the downward, or for if it's for a marginalized community, how we are going to deal with it. So that's the very important question which is always raising in my mind. So please, if if I'll get an
I will
answer
just
from
try
you.
to give answer in a very nutshell that the existing democracy, by observation of many, including I also tend to substantiate that we have we have restricted our democracy from a conceptual democracy as envisaged by Dr. Ambedkar to a merely electoral democracy. Even not me, the international organizations are also putting forth similar observation. Secondly, the vision of Dr. Ambedkar was very clear. He said that we can bring about revolutionary changes if the organs of democracy are in place and they are operative. Now, the other question will come into picture, that who failed the constitution, or who will fail the constitution, or whether constitution has failed people or people have failed constitution. People have failed democracy or democracy have failed people, something like this. Both ways, the answer is a double-edged. But ultimately, his vision was, why through this process, very, very realistic vision, he creates institutions, he provides the safeguard, he provides the framework, and he said that with this, if it is achieved, which he thought would be achieved, would definitely pave a way for social democracy. Now, social democracy in terms of what? Social democracy meaning there will be definitely there will be social mixture, there will be interaction of society across the communities, because there will be economic exchange, there will be social exchange, there will be cultural exchange, and not only this, it will come out as a big political force, and thereby the political apparatus will also get strengthened, and therefore it will be drawing energy from each other. The political democracy will draw energy from the social democracy, and social democracy will draw the energy from the political democracy. And that is what he envisaged probably. And most of the scholars, whether John Drees, or even Gail Ombet, one of his first book which she talked about, Gail also articulated in a differently, but she also somehow substantiated the same view that his vision was for social democracy. His vision was not exactly what people are interpreting today. Today, for that matter, he talks about democracy with the constitutional morality. The morality he puts forth, morality he puts at a much higher order, as a constitutional morality. So that way, he said that if the society is moral, if the law and governance and the administration is having morality of all kinds, otherwise you will realize today that even the highest judicial officials, after they relinquish the authority of the powers, they come back and talk about the political line of the parties. So that means, Dr. Ambedkar, probably he was talking about the morality in law and administration. Whether that morality exists, if that morality does not exist, then social democracy will be a distant dream in that sense. But it is difficult to achieve. But what I'm saying is, it is not impossible to achieve. It is still possible to achieve, provided there will be adequate force from the social angle, from the social force, which will be political force in the process. When the political force will be there, then the democracy will naturally be having, the organs of the democracy will have some compulsions to look forward to and respond to that. That's why, which I did not speak about, is the morality, that one precondition which he talked about. For achieving social democracy is not possible because morality and equality, these are the fundamental, the basis, tenets, for achieving the last ultimate aim, that is democracy. I say social democracy. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've answered your question because I don't want to elaborate further. It is already 1 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who want to ask a question?
Yeah, I can take one question, one or two questions.
Yeah, this will be the last question. So, is there anyone? Please go ahead.
No, I'm in my office only. I can be here for another 15 minutes. Then lecture can stop. Yeah, I think if there is no question, I think I thank you all because many people have joined.
No, just wait. There are, I think. Shashikant, you should ask a question. Ask.
एक्चुअली सर जैसे हम बात करते हैं सर, पहले बात तो सर आपका लेक्चर बहुत अच्छा था और वी आर रियली एनलाइटेड बाय दिस लेक्चर। तो हमारी जो डेमोक्रेसी है, जैसे हमारे जैसे कहते हैं इंडिया का सेकंड बेस्ट जो ऑप्शन है हमारे पास सोसाइटी को चलाने का, हमारे प्रोफेसर करुणकरा सर बोलते हैं कि ये हमारा सेकंड बेस्ट ऑप्शन है, फर्स्ट बेस्ट ऑप्शन की अभी खोज चल रही है। डेमोक्रेसी में अक्सर क्या होता है, नंबर गेम का सारा खेल। जैसे कहते हैं कि जो सोसाइटी की जो नीड्स है, सोसाइटी जो हमारी जिस तरीके से चल रही है, सोसाइटी की जो सिचुएशन है उसके बिहाफ पे हमारा डेमोक्रेसी होना चाहिए। तो इस हिसाब से देखा जाए तो इसमें भी एक डबल एज्ड प्रॉब्लम है कि देखा जाए तो संख्या में जो लोग ज्यादा हैं हमेशा उन्हीं की सुनी जाएगी और जो अपोजिशन वाली बात है उनकी बात हमेशा दब के रह जाएगी, क्योंकि सोसाइटी तो डेमोक्रेसी तो नंबर गेम पे ही चलती है। तो सर इस चीज को आप कैसे देखते हैं सर, इसको कैसे डील किया जाएगा सर?
एक्चुअली लेट मी क्लैरिफाई ऑन द नंबर गेम। मैं आपको नंबर गेम में बता देना चाहता हूँ कि मेजॉरिटी
Professor More, your answer could be in English only.
Okay, that will be good, because let me clarify on the number game. Actually, who is in the more in number in our country? The country which is at the lower rungs of the society, and the country also which is demography talk about, you see, then the large chunk of the society belongs to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or the backward classes and minorities. Almost constitute 86% now. Few privileged classes are only 13 to 14%. But the changes which have taken place, like you see the example of Nepal, why I cite like this, that in Nepal there were only 28% of the privileged classes, and almost like 69 to 72% were from non-privileged classes. They call one class as Brahmin, another one is Kshatri. These are the two. They were opposition. They were in government. It appears, and I was listening to some of the debates. But there is another angle to that. That 69% had enough vigor and energy to dethrone that 29 some percent. So in India, it is almost like 85+%. That is. But when it comes to the representation, the equal number of MPs from the reserved category are there in the parliament. Good number of people are also represented in the executives and except in the media there is a big question mark. But in the executives also, we have a good number of individuals who are from the marginalized communities. So despite this, where is the problem there? Now the problem lies with the morality of the people, in the officials, in the judiciary, in the polity, and again in the media. I cannot put forth so emphatically because media in our country, as the observations are, it stands compromised. And it's not as vibrant as it was supposed to be and as independent as it was envisaged while we came up with the Prasar Bharati bill. So as a public bill, it's a public broadcasting corporation. So therefore, because public broadcasting has to carry the very balanced opinions of the society, it has to carry forward. Now, how many instances that are recorded on the public broadcast? There is sometimes it acts as a propaganda machine also. Sometimes people say different names are there. So when you say that majority and minority, to be very frank, that majority in the country is still marginalized. And the minority in the country is still probably is a privileged class. the first condition for having a vibrant democracy was that nobody should have all the privileges, and the majority should not carry the burdens. And that is where we are probably have ended up with. And that's where there is a scope of there is a scope for radical changes, and there is a scope for, even for that matter, to change this transition also. We are still in transition, and there is probably the scope for change, and this change could be possible. I think it is possible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, I'm Professor Karunyakara, sir. Can we go for a vote of thanks? Yeah. With the permission of chair, I request Shashikant Sambodhi to please give vote of thanks.
Thank you, Akash. With the permission of the chair, we extend our sincere gratitude to all the participants and attendees of the 16th online lecture of KIDK lecture series. We are deeply thankful to Dalit historian and Ambedkar Professor Dr. L. Karunyakara sir for chairing the session, and Professor N.K. More sir for delivering an enlightening lecture on the wonderful topic, revisiting Ambedkar's ideas of democracy, current contestations. Professor More sir rightly insisted on the point that for Ambedkar, democracy comes from a social organization. While pointing out the unrest in neighboring democratic countries, for Professor, proper opposition is must in actual democracy. By addressing the Constitution of India, Article 1, for Professor, our country is union of states rather than a centralized authoritarian regime. For him, in a real democracy, diversity matters. We are signatory of sustainable development. The duty of state is to provide fundamental rights, access of healthcare security, and access to education. While quoting Ambedkar, for More sir, society should be the base of a democracy, because Ambedkar has already seen the various downfalls of democracies in Europe. So social reality and social morality is the must-do subject of the state in the democracy. Otherwise, the democracy can collapse. Thank you, sir. And special appreciation goes to the coordinator, Dr. Sukeshni, Dr. Darshana, Dr. Smita, Mr. Akash, Mr. Shreyat, and Mr. Vijay for their dedicated efforts. Launched on Ambedkar Jayanti 2025, this series continues to enrich Dalit knowledge studies. Thank you for your valuable participation. Lastly, we kindly request you to subscribe to the Dalit Knowledge YouTube channel, where this recorded session will be uploaded soon. Jai Bhim.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Those who missed anything, please go and check our YouTube, so you can find all our interviews there. And we are going to meet you soon with next Saturday with other guests and for a lecture. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.